Yeah.
Well, yourself, I know.
I know.
Not bad, nice and relaxed.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, nice to have all the kids home and down now.
Yeah,
Still fun. Like,
I know.
Oh, yeah. Spread way out.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah, we still have a focus on ourselves. Yeah, the elf, the yeah, yeah, they're good. They're good with us.
You to see me.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a freaking crowd. Hey.
That's a great number.
3 days.
agenda for the day.
Really?
Did you watch see the football on the college games yesterday? Oh, God, I know it. I didn't stay up and watch the second one. The first one was great. You watch the second one?
I only watched the first quarter, so
That'd be like me,
I
yeah.
had to really decide, okay, we're really going back to school, I gotta go to bed. I had to send it
I did.
So I sent it right in between the games, so Todd didn't text me what he wanted me to do.
That's great. I didn't watch the game, but they said the Dallas, Detroit game was ending. This was, did you hear what happened?
No, was you young?
A guy went in and went through a committee, put himself as an eligible receiver. And he lined up as a receiver.
Okay, I'd like to open up.
This other guy reported, so they threw a penalty, the guy caught the one conversion, they threw a flag and said he was not an eligible receiver. And they all went wild.
A motion to open up our budget hearing. Not working.
Said he wasn't eligible to receive it.
I'll make that motion.
And
Seconded by Christie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining?
Is that mic on, Madam Chair?
No.
Yeah.
You gotta turn it on, did it?
We're not allowed to. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm just gonna go over a few things and then we'll have Tyler go over a few things and we'll be going over the 3 articles and then we'll take questions as well. Welcome again to our meeting. We have here at the high school 5 goals. Our first goal talks about SAT and proficiency at around a 3% baseline. Students in grades 9 through 10, goal number 2, will take ownership in their learning and behavior by maintaining a failure rate of 15% of students who fall 1 or more classes or fail 1 or 2 classes. That's somewhat of a support system for our 9th and 10th graders in terms of at-risk and students that have transition issues or struggling. Sometimes the sophomore year can be a challenging year. Our goal number 3 is the budget at around 3% annually. We have a sheet here too. If you guys see the handouts, that there's one that talks about the last 13 years. You'll see our increases on that yellow sheet. Goal number 4, maintain a dropout rate of less than 1% annually. By our calculations, we're at about 0.8%. And then goal number 5, maintain communication with parent, district residents, and expand communication with sending schools. So things like math teachers from all over the district getting together and talking about the expectations, say, in middle school as opposed to the expectations in the high school and matching up goals and setting students up consistently for entering the high school at somewhat of a equal playing field in terms of what they're learning from each sending school. Our board, like I said, meets at 5 o'clock. Then we have typically our teaching and learning which covers committees, and that's the third Tuesday of every month. And that pretty much covers, teaching and learning covers curriculum and education, and then our school operation committee meeting, which focuses on infrastructure in the building. Should be noted that this building is 211 square feet, 211,000 square feet, and the high school sits on about 47 acres. Improvements made to the high school this year through ESSER grants have been around 1.7 million. Things like the HVAC system getting repaired and work done to it. You know, you could wait 5 or 10 years and pay for the whole percentage, 100% of that project, but when we qualify for maybe 60% or 70% or a percentage of that, we want to jump at those funds and try to use them so that the town doesn't have to feel the impact of doing the whole, say for example, HVAC system, VAC system on its own. So it's things like that that we discuss typically in May and June, and we invite the 7 town communities that vote on the budget for them to come out on those meetings and let us know their feelings and thoughts. We have, there's another sheet that talks about the money, that colored sheet is, I think that was, what color sheet was that? The yellow one, sorry, the golden rod. These are funds that the board has intentionally not spent each year, indicated funds which have been utilized to reduce taxes raised by subsequent years. Presently, we have also committed $150,000 from the fund balance to help offset taxes for the proposed budget that we're talking about tonight. And again, 7 towns vote on this budget, and 4 towns are tuitioning in their students. We are SB2, just to go over what SB2 is. That's a deliberative session which will be February 6th at 6:30, and then the second part of SB2, the second session they call it, is voting on election day for our budget, which will be 3 articles. Most of us experienced increases in our tax bills, and we're working hard to try to keep things in tow. Specifically in this budget, the hardship was the increases, which is also in these handouts. The health insurance, that went up substantially, and that's not an option. We can't choose not to provide health insurance for employees in the building. And then the other increase that we had no control over was special education. You know, we planned for the worst, hope for the best, but at times that can make a change. Some of it gets reimbursed, some of it doesn't, and of course we have to put that money in the budget as best we can. Lastly, I want to, you know, I always don't get a chance to say this, but the administrative team, teachers, support staff, facility, parks crew, coaches, and the many volunteers, club advisors. I would say a lot of the employees here, their work goes far beyond the classroom. So many of them fundraise for things that they want to see happen here that we don't have in the budget, and they make happen. The opportunities are endless, and we high regards for the faculty and employees in this building that work so hard. There's just not enough said about all of them. And then as well as the SAU board that supports this budget. And lastly, this will be Principal Parsons' last budget hearing. Well, there's all kinds of lasts this year, but again, thank you, because, you know, a few weeks ago when we said we have to make cuts and we have to change what we're doing, you and Kyla didn't bat an eye and went right back to the drawing board and figured it out. So we really appreciate that and all that you both do for the district. And then I didn't say that, I just would like to say the grant piece too, that we're so lucky to receive the grant money that's out there, and we'd like to recognize Kyla, her office, Pam Martin, the Perkins grant that contributed to the career specifics, health science, media, drafting, culinary, outdoor education, and autos. That was $128,000 this year. So we appreciate their hard work of bringing in funds outside of the 7 communities to help pay for 211,000 square feet building that requires a lot of expenses. And then lastly, I just want to thank everybody on this board that does such a great job and comes out and sacrifices their time to be here. And you know, you're a really great board that's very focused, so thank you all for your hard work. And off to you.
All right, good evening, everyone. In your packets, you have several handouts. I'll be referring to the line-by-line budget, which is your thickest packet in your folders or your packets on page 27. First, want to talk about the process that the board went through. Their first draft, their appropriations were up 5%. After that, there were recommended cuts to about 3.6%. And lastly, at their last December meeting, there were a third round of cuts, and now it's about 3.01% in appropriations. So I will be going over page 27, just a summary as far as the significant increases and decreases across the board. Your 1100 account, which is a lot of your budget, is in regards to regular education. There are no new programs going into the high school this year, no new teachers. You can see that's going to be down $75,000. That's mainly due to retirements, and we expect to hire folks at a lower rate for next year. So no new programs, no new teachers or programs at the high school for next year. Special education, line 966, the 1200 account. You will see that's up significantly, $398,791. So I want to talk a little bit about what that involves. The majority of that is due to some recent legislation and more responsibility on the local district. So we have an increase of $326,792 just in out-of-district placements. When I talk about out-of-district placements, they could be a day placement for behavioral kids. They could be children that are hospitalized, that cannot attend school, that we're paying for tutoring or residential care. They can be children that are mentally ill. Some of these placements can be for a single child up to $250,000 in-state. Some are court-appointed, some are not. If they're court-appointed, the school only has to pay a portion of it. But if they are school-placed, then the school is responsible for the entire portion. If they're placed by foster care or the Department of Children and Youth Services, then again, we pay for the school portion of that. That can range anywhere from as low as $75,000 per student, again, up to about $250,000, even more than that if they're out of state. So when you see an increase of that, that can mean less, even if it's $326,000, that can be less than 5 children. So that has been a big difference. The other new legislation that's in place is that students that are significantly disabled now need to be, they used to have to be educated until the age of 21. The new law is that they extended an additional year until age 22. So that has had a significant increase because it is for your more complicated students. So that is the majority of the special ed piece, just more and more ownership on the local district that sometimes we don't have control over. Charter schools are included in that. If you have a child that attends, say is a Plymouth resident, a sophomore, and attends a charter school in Concord, and their special education, the cost is billed to the Pemi Baker district at Plymouth Regional High School. So it's a moving target, and I know it's a significant increase, but there has been a lot more push to the local level. So I just wanted to review that in depth. As you move down, so we have the line 967 applied technology program. That's your career technical center. We are expecting retirements there, so you see that's down $43,862. Co-curricular athletics and summer school, that's up about 15,000, and that's due to all those positions are in the collective bargaining agreement. Same with some new athletic uniform cycles as well. Down to line 970, guidance, drug, and alcohol intervention. Again, that is just staffing and connected to the collective bargaining agreement. Health services is the same. Psychological services and speech OT, PT, so that's occupational therapy, physical therapy services. So those are related services connected right to special education. So those services are connected to individuals. Nothing in assemblies, improvement of instruction, there's no increase. Library services, again, is up 6,339. That's just in your collective bargaining agreement and salaries, no change in staffing. School board services, that's down 1,000. SAU services is up 20,195. That's no new programs. That's mainly due to health insurance and staffing, but there are no additional staff at the SAU. And that is split as 50% ADM, 50% equalized valuation. That's the approved formula. The applied tech director and tech coordinator, so those are just 2 positions, so that is just their increases. The principal's office, line 980, our principal is leaving, so we do expect a decrease in that line. The financial account is 0. Custodial services, so there were a lot of cuts between budget 2 and budget 3, a lot of the projects that were taken out, and that is down 53,821. It's not that things have gotten cheaper, we did just cut and took more of a risk that we'll spend less in some of the maintenance areas as well. Transportation, the majority of that, it's up 60,000, that's directly connected to special education. Again, if students are being transported to day placements or it's in their individualized education plans, that's separate transportation outside the busing contract. So that is connected right to special education again. And it's some for those 18 to 22-year-olds as well that can't ride the bus. Support services, so that's your school resource officer. And that's a split with Plymouth Elementary School, that cost. Building improvements is 0. Principal and interest is down $14,018. You'll see the big jump here on line 989. Other than special ed, this is our big increase, that's the health insurance. And there is a handout in there that goes over this historical increases with the GMR and the health insurance. That is up significantly this year, 13.9%. But remember, the health insurance is tied to the collective bargaining agreement. So that reflects that piece. About $1,500 in dental insurance. Then you have the federal funds and food service funds, which there's no increase, with a total of about 3.01%, which is $522,164. So that's in general what the increases are mainly due to special ed and those related services that I just went over, as well as the health insurance. Again, no new programs, no new teachers. We do have some retirements, so we do expect those to be in less. There are plenty of handouts that go over just some of the historical data as far as health insurance, your tax assessment, retirement, etc. So if you have any questions, I think Lisa will take them at this point.
Sure. And everyone got the 3 articles. Great.
Yeah, so just quickly, I'll just do the 3 articles real quick. It's pretty standard. It's the operating budget, or the tuitioning contracts, and the contingency funds, which is the typical warrant articles. There's no contracts up this year for teachers' contracts or support staff.
And then you'll see with the article number 3, the budget of $17,889,956 with the default budget of $17,628,686.
Yep.
And sure, come on up if you have any questions. Just need to know your name and what town you're from, and go for it.
Zach Terrell, Plymouth. This question's probably for Dan. I'm trying to understand the tax rate impact for the town of Plymouth in particular. Looking at these rates, I can't tell if this 2023 rate is before the reassessment that we did or after the reassessment that we did this year. So I don't know if you have.
It's after.
So it's after.
Yeah, so if you're looking on the sheet under the 2024 estimated tax rate at the bottom left, where net assessed valuation 2023 is the Plymouth number of $739 million.
Yes.
That's the reassessed valuation of the town.
So 739 million is the reassessed, and when I come over and I look at the 24 rate, obviously that's based on this year.
Correct.
Is this 2023 rate also being based on that number?
That 23 is the actual rate that was for the tax bills that were issued in December by the town, relative to this district.
So, but that was based on that reassessed 739 million number?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So we're not looking at a surprising increase there. It's actually 4%. So so it's just a little bit, if, I say this in case somebody comes as a taxpayer, right? Because if that's before, we would have expected with a big reassessment to see our tax rate go, our tax number go down. But it went down in the 2022 to 2023, which wouldn't, they never would have seen.
When you say you expect the number to go down, what number are you talking about? Are you talking about the total amount?
I'm talking about the tax rate.
The tax rate.
Which would have gone down for the town.
The tax rate did go down.
Exactly, but the taxpayers never would have seen that on a piece of paper in the context of the school. Because a year ago when you showed this, you didn't know what we were gonna set our tax rate to. So if I pulled out one of these from last year,
Yep.
it probably says $5 or $6 tax
Correct.
rate.
But it was clear that it indicated what year it was based on.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just warning you that if somebody was to do that math or look at that, they might come in and say, well, we just had this reassessment. I would have expected this year the number to go down. It did go down. It just doesn't, it's not shown on the paper. Does that make sense?
I don't necessarily see it the way you see it. I think that we're providing accurate, real-time, valid data, right? So the number last year was the actual, if you dial back 365 days, you would have seen the actual tax rate from the tax bills a month earlier and the projected tax rate based on the valuation of last fall.
Right.
Now we're showing the actual rate from last month and the projected rate for next year based on the valuation that was just completed. So,
I understand what you're saying, but if I was a taxpayer and I had looked at this last year,
yeah,
you would have set a 2023 projected tax rate of over $5. And the reality is the tax rate was $3.56. Because the town reassessed. You understand what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
State Representative Sally Fellows, I live in Holderness. Just to follow up on that last question, I know that Holderness also had a reval last year. Do you know if any of the other towns, if they did or they did not?
So all towns in New Hampshire are required to undergo a revaluation at a minimum every 5 years. These numbers are all towns, so they vary in terms of how much they change their valuation, right? It could be a large change based on an overall revaluation. So for example, Plymouth and Holderness and Ashland had complete town revaluations that have large changes. And we can go through the numbers maybe offline if you would like on each town's numbers. And then you have smaller numbers when it's not a complete revaluation of the town, just an increase in maybe property development. So for example, I want to say the town of Wentworth, which is this year, their valuation was at 130 million. Last year it was, excuse me, 133 million. So that town's total valuation went down, but a very small percent, right? Not only $2 or $3 million, about 2%. Whereas, as you know, Holderness, for example, went up almost 50%, which contributes to their change in assessment, and Plymouth went from 495 to over 700 million. So I'm not sure if I answered your question right. We can go town by town if you want, or.
No, that's
Yeah.
just fine. I'm just thinking in terms of the ones that had the complete reval,
Mhm.
that if they're still kind of in sync with the other towns, but.
So I can't speak to what the individual towns do in terms of their process or their schedule. I'm not involved at the town level, to be honest with you.
Because one of the things that I work with is statewide property tax.
Yep.
And that uses the equalized valuations, and also in some of the documents I can see the difference when there's not a, when they get too far out of sync, the equalized valuation and the real value, the assessed valuation.
Right.
But the question that I originally wanted to ask has to do with transportation. Can you tell me anything about the split between how the transportation is split between regular ed, special ed, athletics, and whatever else might be a major factor?
Sure.
Yeah. We're going for last year.
So right now, we're in the last year of our regular transportation contract. And that remained about the same at about 470,000. 95,000 is generally towards athletic programs. And then 492,546 is your specialized transportation. That is up 57,964 from the year before. That's just for special ed transport. Yeah.
Ted Wisniewski, Plymouth. So I was going to talk a little bit about special ed. In the pink paper, you say 20%, but at the board meeting, you mentioned also that there are costs for special ed sprinkled across the rest of the areas.
Yeah, 1,200 is just the special ed piece.
So if you were to add up all of those miscellaneous values across the other areas, what is the true cost of special ed? Is it 25%? Is it 30%? It's hard to, without knowing, that number down here is a little nebulous.
We did a little bit of work. That was the same question from one of the board members last month, as far as when we started with the 5%, how much of that was special ed? And the increase in just special ed was a little over 3%, I think is what we came up with. At the top of my head, I don't know the exact percentage, but like I said, it would include, your special ed portion, which is 20%, 2% of your speech psychologist, occupational physical therapy, your health services, because some of the students receive nursing services, obviously your specialized transportation, your guidance office, kids that require counseling, and I think that's support services, even support services from a school resource officer would be included in that. But it would be a portion of each, like the entire guidance department.
Added it all up.
If I added it all up, I would.
Yes. An extra 3%?
I would say. I would say about 25%, 30% too.
So it's almost as expensive as the regular.
It could be at times, yes.
It just seems crazy.
With the difference in students too.
With the number of students.
That's really the.
The biggest thing, and we're seeing this at the elementary schools too, is the number of needs. So it used to be you know, there were very mild disabilities that would come in. Right now, we're seeing some students that are coming in with significant needs. So they need all the services, special ed teacher, OT, PT, counseling, mental health services, nursing. So if one student has those services, and then again, from 21 to 22 years old, that could be 6 or 7 more kids. And the kids that are staying for a non-high school, so they don't get diplomas, are typically receiving all of those services because they will be in supportive housing or life skills as they leave the high school. Sorry, there's no straight answer. I wish there was.
My next question was regarding the medical aids. It's something you noted as a significant contribution to the increased cost. You know, I see, it seems that we're using Health Trust. Is that the case?
Yes.
Have we examined shopping around, looking for other providers, possibly offering other plans to employees so that, you know, there's an advantage for us to save money, but also for the employee to save money as well? Something similar to what has been done at the town level.
So you have 2 different unions here at the high school. You have your teachers union and your support staff union. Each of the health portions are negotiated through their contracts, so they both have continuing contracts this year, so they weren't up this year for any changes, but typically, I think there's, if health insurance is on the table as a negotiating piece, I would think you look at a variety of health plans. Is that answering that?
What I'm getting at here is I'm not talking about taking anything away.
Right.
I'm talking about offering other options that they could elect into. I'm assuming that's not against the rules, to save money for themselves and the.
So you actually, to offer an alternative plan, you would need agreement between the bargaining parties.
Have we asked?
I can't say that we've asked in this district. I know specifically of another district in this SAU where we asked the question about offering an alternative plan. The union said, no, we don't want to entertain it. They're very protective of having access to the Anthem network.
So it's a specific network that we're locking into because of
The bargaining units bargain for a specific health plan or class of plans.
Bernie?
The last contract that was negotiated, which was 3 or 4 years ago now, we came up with different plans that actually did cost the teachers less and cost the district less. And new teachers were required to take those. They couldn't take the premium plans that had previously been offered. If a teacher had already been on those plans, they could elect to stay on them. There was no forcing them off, but they certainly had the option, and we did have several people go on to the new plans. So we have done that as part of the negotiations, and I think going forward we plan to continue in that same vein.
When are these contracts up?
Yeah, I can pull up the dates for the contract, sure. Just 1 second.
I mean, the reason why I'm asking is
Yeah.
like, I hate it when contracts just get continued because it's easier for everybody. And some of them are not in everybody's best interest. And so the time that the contract is up is basically your opportunity. And my personal recommendation is to avoid getting locked into long-term contracts that you have no way out of. Thank you.
So to answer your question, the current teacher's contract goes through June of 2026, so that we anticipated that negotiations would start in fall of 2025, and the support staff contract currently goes through June of 2025. It would be anticipated that negotiations on a new contract would start in the fall of 2024.
Come on up.
I'm Dal from Rumney, and I just got a question on the, in a bunch of the different areas, it says general, and there's an increase of $5,000 in all of these places. And when it says general, what does this mean? What are we paying for here?
What are you looking at specifically? Yeah.
Because, repairs and maintenance,
What line is it?
1100, first page, down there at 430, 430.
Line 19.
It says general, and it's,
Right, I can,
this is a number of places it says general.
Yeah.
What does general mean?
so general repairs and maintenance are the cost for the upkeep of the building per year, so it's all, if you want to go into the
Well, that line,
specifics about
that
some of
line item
those.
Mr. Giles is referring to is the general 430. That's our copiers, paper, that, so rather than me hit one, the whole school has to pick it up, science, math, so that's how it's under general. Where's your next, there's another general?
General down under 650.
650 is gonna be software. Yep, and again, that is,
It says it's additional software
This
license.
year, John, we took, that line used to be under custodian. Under Kyla's direction, we moved all the licenses that go along with all these programs to the general education part. Like the 1300, they'll have their license in there. This is all the software license for the 1100 account, for the science department, for the math department, who accompany their software that goes along with the programs in their curriculum.
So each section has a general.
Generally, yeah, it does, John. I have one for athletics too, that's put in there, and general technology, again, covers the entire building, but it's all for technology. I may need additional laptops or additional Chromebooks for incoming students coming in, so rather than I target that line, I'll put it there.
Each time it's going up $5,000.
Generally, John, it depends on the enrollment that's coming in the building too. So I try to keep it as level funded as I can. Thank you, John.
Any additional questions? Alright, so with that, we will close the hearing. And then we will, let me get my paperwork. So, we will need to move the 3 articles to the deliberative session, February 6th, if somebody would like to.
I'll make the motion to move the article to the deliberative.
Great, somebody wants to second that?
I'll second.
Bonnie, I'm gonna do roll call.
Yes.
Bernie, Bonnie.
Yes.
Yes.
Bill, Peter, Paul, Christie, Barbara, Peter, Paul. Who's on the end? Okay, and myself, yes. Okay. All right. That's
Good,
it.
Bernie and Phil.
Motion to, well, yes, motion to adjourn, the deliberative, sorry, the budget hearing. Who would like to do that?
Motion to adjourn. Second that.
Paul and Christie. Okay, Christie and Paul. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? I know, I just said that, just.